Hello friends, Tanya here with another video, and I am featuring the Lisa Horton All About Christmas collection that is debuting today. We're going to start out with an overview of all of the products in this collection. Here is a stencil. This isn't a layering stencil, but it has it's called Lots of Circles, and it has a lot of potential for lots of uses. We also have the Essential Stars. These are stitched stars, and you can see the beautiful stitched lines on the inside of, I think it's 3 of the stars. There's a total of 5 stars in that nesting collection. And then we have the Merry Sentiments Stamp and Cut. This has 3 layered sentiment. There's also a Christmas sentiments with the same style of stamp and cut. 3 layers for the main word, and then many stamps with 1 die that cuts all of them out. There's Sending Smiles sentiments, and this is a Little Hello sentiments. And then we also have the Very Best Wishes sentiments. These aren't part of this collection, but these are all Lisa Horton products, and they came out in previous releases. So she's got a theme going with these triple layer sentiments and stamps, 1 stamp that stamps several sentiments and a die that cuts all of them out. I'm stamping them with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink on a white piece of cardstock here, and I've treated that cardstock with some anti-static powder, with an anti-static powder tool, just to make sure that my embossing, because I'm going to heat emboss these. I really like heat embossed sentiments when we're stamping. And I'm using some clear embossing powder here in just a tub. This is several different brands of of embossing powder. Embossing powder lasts a really long time, and I had several tubs of embossing powder, clear fine embossing powder. So I dumped them into 1 tub, and they all work beautifully together. I'm just using my heat tool to melt all of those sentiments that were heat embossing, and there we go. And I'll show you how this die perfectly goes around all of these sentiments and die cuts all of them at once. I do like that there's a little separation between each of the dies, or the individual holes that it cuts, because that gives me a cleaner cut in my experience. And you don't have to use 2 acrylic plates. You can use one of the magic mats. For the layering dies, I am using the Antique, the Gold, and the Ruby assortment packs of treasured cardstock to die cut 3 different colors for the layers here. We've got brushed cardstock, or the pearlized cardstock, glitter cardstock, and then the metallic or brushed metallic cardstocks. Now you can just layer, you can use the sentiment, the fine detail part all by itself. You can use it with the narrow shadow or with the wide shadow, or all 3 together. There's lots of versatility with this, and I really do like the triple layer. It is very beautiful, and it really makes a sturdy element for the front of your card. Here I've layered the Christmas onto the fine detail onto the smaller shadow. I'm knocking off some paper hairs on the edges of my die cut, just using the edge of my fine tip reverse tweezers. I love these reverse tweezers, man. The reverse tweezers, fine tip glue, and embellishment wands with the pickup sticks work fantastic. So I did layer up the Merry the same way. And these are the sub sentiments that come in the Merry Stamp and Cut stamp and cut set. There we go. And you can combine these in many ways to create many different versions of the Merry sentiment. You can put them together in some different configurations too. There's also the Christmas Foliage die set in this collection, and it die cuts a bunch of foliage. I like that it cuts both of these branches out at once. And all of the berries for this berry branch get cut out at once, and the details for the leaves get cut out. On each die, they cut out all of the components that you need. The berries are pretty easy to assemble. There are 3 different sizes of berries, and you just start with the largest one at the top and work your way down to the lower branches. It isn't really particular about which end of the berry gets attached to the branch, and there is our little branch assembled. Next, I'm going to assemble the poinsettia, or whatever kind of flower you want to make this. There are 2 sizes of petals here, not very much difference. I've cut these from different finishes of the metallic cardstock from the Ruby Treasured Cardstock assortment. All of the greenery is die cut for some cardstock that was sprayed with Distress mica stain sprays, and honestly, I don't remember what colors they are. They're probably the Christmas ones from the very first year, because that's what I had in my secondary craft space. I don't have that secondary craft space anymore. All of that stuff has come home, and I'm trying to incorporate that back into the rest of my craft room. I've layered those branches together, and we're also going to put together the little tiny berries for the holly. I think this is holly. Yeah, holly versus mistletoe. Yeah, this is definitely the holly. Just going to layer the little 3 berries on top of the base 3-berry piece, and then we have some detail elements to add to the holly leaves. And these are pretty easy to match up to the part of the leaf that they need to go on. And these leaves point in opposite directions, and you can attach them to each other in whatever way you like. But they do have separate shapes for each size. Just going to add the berries on top of our little holly leaves. And that completes all of the components that are in the Christmas foliage die. Then we have the little birdies die. I think that's yeah, it says birdies. I thought it said birds for a second there. We have 2 birds facing each other here, and there is a die that cuts out the bird bodies together. There are these little tiny dies for legs and these little tiny boots that go on the ends of the legs. Now, you don't have to use the boots, you don't have to use the legs, but they are a fun little element. And there's one die that cuts out 2 pairs of boots at once. There's a die that cuts out 4 legs and 2 beaks, so you only have to run that through once. There is a die that cuts out a backer for behind the eyes, and it cuts out 2 of those at the same time. I'm just trying to line up these cute little legs, and I'm going to just hold the larger piece, the body, to pick up the legs and the beak when I attached that. Here's the little round backer for the eyes. I did not video assembling this. It looks like a chimney to me. There are 7 pieces that cut out snow, and that was the longest one. There is a cute little stocking cap and earmuffs and a scarf in this die set. They are adorable, and they fit on the little birds. There's 2 tails for the scarf. Just going to attach those to one end of the scarf, and we'll put that on our cute little bird. Now, this could go on either bird. You could put the tie ends of the scarf on either end of this piece, and that would make it work for either bird. There is this cute little earmuff, and that really only works for this bird, the bird that's facing to the left, because there's a little curve to that to arch over the top of his head. And then we have our cute little stocking cap. That would work on either bird. Just going to add a little glue to that. I used some glitter cardstock from the antique assortment to die cut the trim on the hat and the earmuffs. There is a little blossom that goes on the tree branches, there are several leaves that cut all at once. I think it's 6 leaves that cut on one die, and 2 of the blossoms. And you can layer that up. Now, there is no greenery on the trees unless it's a pine tree where I live in the winter. But I imagine there are some places where winter has a little bit of snow and still has some greenery. We're going to layer those pieces of snow on the branches. And I'm just following the graphics on the front of the packaging to figure out where these go. And you can improvise. They don't have to go where the packaging shows them. Like anything in crafting, you make it whatever you want it to do. I decided to follow the packaging because sometimes that's just easier. I'm going to add the leaves in a scattering at the ends of the branches. This could represent the new growth at the end of the winter too. These birds don't have to even be dressed in winter gear. You could use the components of this die set to create a summer or spring or fall card, because just changing the colors or the number of leaves or blossoms on the branch, adding or leaving off the snow, those are all ways to expand the use of this die set. Just going to add some leaves to this branch. There are 2 branches. One is, well, they're kind of designed so that you can have a branch coming from each side of a panel. Or you can flip them and have them facing the same way. Branches are pretty versatile because in real life, branches go in every direction, even pointing more towards the ground or more towards the sky. Just going to add another leaf here, and that's the cute little branch. There I've got them pointing in different directions. There's lots of spaces that you could put that cute little blossom. There's the birds on the branches. Next we have this Lots of Stripes die set, which honestly I didn't think I was going to have as much fun with this die set as I did. It has 2 insets, has 1 frame die. Just drop in your whatever inset die you're going to use. There's a diagonal stripe and a straight stripe in the long direction. And this is about, what is it? 3.5 by 4.5 inches, I think, is the dimensions of this die cut. And I cut it from some glitter cardstock from the Ruby assortment, and I cut some of the pearlized white or pearlized metallic from the antique collection. I'm just adding glue around the frame and to each of the stripes here, but I had a lot of fun with this panel or with this die set. There's so many fun ways to use these stripes. I was pretty surprised. You can create, this looks candy cane-ish to me. Here we've got pearlized paper from the Rose Gold Treasured Cardstock Pack. I wanted some pink, and this looks like a nice soft pink. And this first thing I'm doing is I am using the outer frame of the stripes to add the dropout stripes back onto a piece of pearlized white cardstock. Just going to add that last little triangle. Now I'm not going to leave that on the frame. I'm going to peel that off, and I'm going to use that on another element. But this way we have the stripes, instead of being the frame, it's the pieces that are the dropouts that are going to stay behind. Whoops, one of them decided to adhere to my frame. Lay that back down and give it a good rub, and there we go. We have some stripes on a background, and that turned out really cute too. All right, we'll take this and glue this to one more of those white pearlized metallic cardstocks. I'm just adding a line of glue around the outside. The tweezer really helps to keep your fingers out of the glue. I get so much glue on my fingers all the time that it's nice to remember to use the tweezer and avoid some of the glue. I use my fingers to pick up extra glue that's oozing outside of die cuts that have adhered together, just because I really hate having the glue marks on my paper. I know that the glue's dry clear, but you can still see the glue marks on your paper. Now this time I decided to have 3 colors of stripes here. So we've got the white background, we've got the pink frame, and then I'm going to every other space that I could drop a stripe into, and I'm adding the glitter cardstock, the red glitter. And this looks like such a fantastic tasty peppermint candy cane. I love this. This turned out so cute. I can't believe I didn't use this one on the card that I created for this video. I thought about it, but sometimes there's an element you like so much, you just really, it's hard to use it. Actually, I did get a bunch of Hero Art stuff recently, the new release stuff, and I want to use it with the peppermint stuff, the candy canes collection. Next, we have the Bow and Bell scalloped frame. It has these stitching dies, rounded corners, and a scalloped edge with stitching on it too. There's also a bow and a bell, which you can tell from the title of the product. There are, let's see, there's a back die for the tails of the bow. You have the 2 loops for the bow. You have the accent for the insides of the bows, and then you have the little knot in the middle. So you can create a lot of depth and dimension with these dies. It looks really realistic, and it makes a nice fluffy bow. There's a close-up of that bow, and I use 2 different kinds of metallic cardstock to really accentuate the differences there. I also used the gold assortment here, and I used the brushed gold and the metallic gold here, or no, brushed gold and matte gold for the different elements of this bell. I wasn't sure where to put this elliptical piece, but yeah, it just goes on the bottom here, and we have the clanger, the clapper. I don't remember what it's called, but the little thing that goes back and forth and makes the bell ring. Now this actually is probably supposed to go behind the bell, but I kind of like it on top. Just trying to make sure I get that nicely centered at the top of the bell, getting rid of the extra glue smudgies. And then I decided I really wanted to try adding that to the top of the bell. I thought that would be really cute. That's not how the packaging shows it being used, but hey, why not? Cute little bell with a bow. Looks very Christmassy to me. Next, we are going to look at the, I did a little experiment here. I was trying to get some really nice white embossing on black cardstock. And I tried 4 different methods. First, I tried the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. This is 2 stampings, and you can see some speckliness there through. And then I tried 3, thinking maybe I just needed more ink to catch more of the white embossing powder. Nope, I got more black speckies. So then I pulled out a white pigment ink, and I stamped that with 3 impressions, and it still had gaps. And then I pulled out my Versamark and stamped that 3 times, and I kept nice crisp letters and got a good solid white. So VersaFine or Versamark with 3 impressions and then your white embossing powder gave me the best results. Now we're going to do our first card. That's the Peppermint Stripes embossing folder. I took a piece of 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 inch and ran that through the embossing folder. And now I'm using my Crocodile corner chomper. There we go, corner chomper. And I'm rounding the corners of this matting panel because we're going to use the Bow and Bell scallop die set to create the to create a landing pad for the rest of our elements on the card. Now we've got the lots of stripes, white and pink, that I created earlier. And that layers very nicely in that scallop frame. And then we have the Merry sentiments. I've got the large Merry and one of the sub sentiments from that. And then we have the Christmas foliage that we created earlier. Now I'm going to layer all of this up to create our first card. I have a 5x7 card base here. And then I added extra scraps of cardstock behind that peppermint stripe embossed panel. That peppermint stripe embossed panel or embossing folder came out, I think, last year. And I've used it a ton. It's a really great embossing folder. It's still available. So if you haven't picked it up, now is a great time to add that to your collection. Or if you already have it, pull it out and use it. Next, we're going to adhere the panels, the scallop frame and the lots of stripes panel together. I'm going to add the pine bough here behind the poinsettia. I want to make a corner of foliage on the corner of this lots of stripes panel. I really like the soft look of the pink and white together, and then the pops of red and green and gold from the sentiment and from the foliage that we're adding here. I'm adding the white berries. I like that there are 3 different colors of greens in the greenery. I like the variety there. It really adds a lot of interest when you have multiple tones of green. Now I'm finding placement for my Merry and my Christmas. I could have popped these up a little more on the card base or on the front of the card, but I think this was enough. Trying to carefully line that up, make sure it's pretty straight. Not sure that I achieved that. Might be a little crooked. That's okay. Handmade, right? Oh, there's one branch of leaves. I almost forgot to adhere. Just going to tuck that under the poinsettia here, and that'll really give us a lot more balance in our floral grouping. I was trying to figure out where I was going to put this holly these holly leaves and berries, but right above the Merry is a good spot. I'm pulling out another oldie but goodie. This is a Merry Little Christmas Sentiments. This is one from Yana's collection from 2023, I think. That might have been the Amaryllis collection. I'm not positive, but it's a couple years old now. Still great glimmer sentiments. This one says, sending you the very best wishes for a joyful holiday season. Just going to add an accent of hollyberry and leaves here. And that completes card number 1. Give you another good look at that. Now for card number 2, I'm going to use one of the DIY color, the color deck. That's what it's called. And this is the card I'm using for inspiration here. I'm using pine needles and black soot and ink blending this A2 size panel. And we're going to do a bunch of glimmering on this card. I'm just kind of blending this down unevenly down across the card. I want to keep that kind of loose, ink blended, almost watercolored background with lots of color variation. Just trying to blend those together a little bit. And now here's me planning things out a little bit. I'm using the Bow and Bell scallop frame die and the little birdies. And then this is from last year, the holiday background panels. These are awesome. They fit inside the Lisa Horton layering dies, nesting dies. We're going to use some opal foil on this ink blended paper. Here I have my A2 size piece of copy paper, which is a great way to help guide where you lay things down, and then you don't have to tape things down. And that foiled beautifully on our ink blended stuff here, and it's really coming together. I'm just going to line this die up and die cut a panel here using some best ever craft tape that's been used a million times. And the next color choices I made were tattered rose and Victorian velvet. We'll ink blend another panel here. This card was definitely a work in progress. I did not know exactly where I was going with this, so I just kept, as I came up with the idea, each idea I just went ahead with it, trusting the process. I would never have put these two colors together without that DIY color deck inspiration photo. I really wouldn't have. And I like how these colors came together. I foiled some snowflakes on this background, and we'll use the next size smaller of the stitched bow and bell scallop frame dies. I did use that dry brush to take off any overfoiling. Opal foil does tend to overfoil more than a lot of the other ones. That turned out so cute. My plan is to put that branch there. So we're kind of building this pattern as we go. And the next color we're going to use is antique linen. And that plays in with that whole color theme. Just going to loosely ink blend this on another A2 size panel. I'm going to have, I will have some paper scraps or paper waste from this, but that's okay. It is just paper. And here I laid down some scraps of the opal foil, and this is the hard part. You don't know which side you're supposed to use. And honestly, I laid the wrong side down. So I foiled my plate, had to go back and get another piece of foil and foil it the right way. Now that I have that die cut, we're going to move on to the sentiments. We're using the Christmas sentiments. I have that Christmas already die cut. I had embossed the sentiments in gold embossing powder. Now we're going to use the Sparkling Snow 3D embossing folder from, that was a Simon Hurley collection from last year or the year before. I love the snowflakes on this. So I have a piece of cardstock that I cut to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. We ran that through the embossing folder. Now I'm going to use some pearl luster gilding polish to add a little more pizzazz to those snowflakes and make them stand out a little better. They are not going to show very much because the panels that we've already created are going to cover most of the card. Now that I have those all polished, I'm going to use that corner chomper again. Sometimes you bring something out, you use it once, and you're like, hey, why don't I use that more often? That's kind of where I was at. But all of our little panels are rounded too. The corners are rounded, so that makes this fit the rest of the card better. We're going to do a landscape orientation for this 5x7 card. And man, I have to remind myself to do anything but a 5x7 card almost anymore. This really is my favorite card size, and you can fit so much on a 5x7 card. I'm just going to add our little chimney and our cute little birds on the top of the chimney. I'm lining up the feet with the top of the chimney and adhering these down. I did add extra cardstock scraps behind all of the elements here. Even the birds and the chimney and the sentiment. I did add extra cardstock behind each of the rounded rectangles also. Now we're going to adhere the branch to the snowflake panel. Just adding little dabs of glue behind this branch and adhering that down, trying not to get extra glue anywhere because it's going to pick up the Distress Oxide ink and cause some discoloration, and not going there. Don't want to. We're going to use 3 of the sentiments from the Christmas Stampin' Cut. And I am trying to figure out a good placement for these 3 different panels here. Just want there to be some overlap with one of the rectangles with both of the other 2 to make that a cohesive unit. Now that I've roughly figured out placement, I'm going to adhere my first square, the one that is the furthest back. And when I added extra cardstock behind the layers here, I did add extra where it wouldn't be overlapping with another square rectangle. Sorry, rectangles have 4 sides. They don't have to be even. Squares, of course, have 4 even sides, equal sides. So a rectangle can be a square, but a square isn't necessary. Or, yeah, you know what I mean. Gosh, it is late at night and I am recording this. I must be getting a little punchy. Now, I wanted a little extra cardstock behind the parts of these sentiments that are overhanging our antique linen square. So I just layered some up and stuck them underneath the sentiments to make them nice and even. We're going to use another sentiment from a Merry Little Christmas Sentiments that I've glimmered with gold foil and die cut with the coordinating die. We'll add that to the center of the inside of our card. And then I'm going to take the other branch and we're going to tuck that under the sentiment, letting the loop for the G and the cross of the T overlap our branch. I really like how that looks. Then we'll add our heavyweight block to get that to adhere nicely, and that finishes card number 2. Card number 3, I'm going to try to do not a Christmas card. We're going to use dried marigold, scattered straw, and shabby shutters, and do an ink blending on a 5x7 piece of cardstock. Actually, I think this is an 8.5 by 5.5 inch piece of cardstock. It is. I'm not going to ink blend the entire area because I'm only going to use a 5x7, actually a 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. Might even be less than that. And we're going to use the stencil, lots of circles. I'm going to use the one with lots of little circles and the grit paste in Snowfall. I used some of this recently in a video and I really enjoyed playing with it. I sometimes forget I have pastes. Now, Spellbinders has come out with a metal palette knife, which is awesome for me because I use a metal palette knife when I am doing my 2 colors of wax seal technique. And to do that, I need to heat up a palette knife, which you can't do with a plastic palette knife. We're going to use this stencil pal to help smooth the paste across our stencil here. This just creates a nice even coating and helps you do it quickly and easily. I'm going to move my stencil. I don't want it to overlap the other circles. I don't want the stencil to touch the circles that I've already stenciled because that will make a big fat mess. And I don't want to wait for it to dry in between. You can use the corner of your stencil pal to scoop some paste right out of the jar. Now, I'm not going to put the leftover back into that jar because it is contaminated with the ink. There it is all dried and trimmed down. And now I am taking some essential stars that I've die cut in 2 different sizes and the little birdies, which I cut all of these birds with a rainbow of colors. I want this to be just fun and happy and bright. We'll adhere this stenciled and ink blended panel. The Snowfall grit paste is clear with sparkle. So it's translucent, so it takes on whatever color you put it over the top of, and it has a nice sparkly look to it. We're going to take our large sparkles, you know, the stars, and adhere those across the front of the card in a abstract pattern here, putting the larger stars opposite each other in the top and bottom corners, and then just moving our other stars around to kind of fill the space. Once we have our stars in place, we're going to add our birds, and these are kind of going in rainbow order. I decided to put the blues and greens near the top over the green area on the ink blended and stenciled areas. And then I'm just moving the rest of the birds around to get a great placement. Now, I don't put a sentiment on this card yet because I'm not sure what I want it to be. I don't know if it's going to be a thank you card, an encouragement card, a birthday card. Who knows what it's going to be. Now that I have all the little birds attached, we're going to add a little element to the inside of the card, and why not bring the stenciling from the front of the card to the inside of the card. Just going to use, I thought I had dried marigold, scattered straw, and shabby shutters here, but I had squeezed lemonade instead of dried marigold. That's okay, it still looks good. That was my third card. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun playing around with all of this. Had some unexpected designs for me here. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And there is a link to all of the products that I used today in the description box below. Until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.